The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Café. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to Spouses Talking Houses with husband and wife real estate team Jennifer and Brian Frost. Everything you want to know about buying, selling, investing, and owning property. So let's get real about real estate.
Welcome back to Spouses Talking Houses. I'm Jennifer.
And I'm Brian.
Today we are going to talk about, is this the market shift? And we're going to get real about this COVID-19 virus and the health and economic quarantine that we're all under right now.
Fantastic.
You're excited, huh? I want to sort of just go over some knowns, some unknowns, some challenges, and some opportunities. We all know that this is going to have an impact on our general economy, and that means it's going to have an impact on real estate as well. I don't have a crystal ball. However, we've both been in the business since 1986, so we've been through some market shifts before.
As they say, this too shall pass.
Yeah, so we've been through 9/11, the Gulf War, the stock market bubble, the housing bubble, the mortgage meltdown.
Yeah, real estate basically goes in cycles. And sometimes they coordinate with an event like this.
Yeah. And it's one of these things where this is not exactly the same as those other times. However, it's like the seasons. This spring may not be exactly like last spring, and the specifics might be different. But in general, we know what to expect in spring, and we know what to expect in winter and in fall. And that's how I'm approaching this right now. One of the factors that was involved in the mortgage meltdown and in that bubble that was in the 90s when the savings and loans collapse happened was that those were real estate driven recessions. The first one was a real estate driven recession because of overbuilding and oversupply and real estate speculation. And the second one was real estate driven because of the very loose credit and mortgage policies, I guess I want to say, that caused a lot of, again, real estate speculation and overbuying.
Basically lending to people who could not afford it.
Right. Whereas you look at something like 9/11 and the Gulf War, those are things that happened that were outward influences that happened and made a shift in the market, but they affected the market as opposed to the market affecting the economy, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense.
Yeah. I have the same feeling this week that I had right after 9/11, which is now what's going to happen. Like this pause, like this, everything just seems so still and quiet and we don't know what to expect.
Well, plus things are changing day to day, hour by hour.
Right.
As far as what the government's doing, what the lending market is doing.
Mm-hmm.
I did my last appraisal inspection on Monday, March 16th. It was an interior inspection. The day after, I let all my clients know that I would no longer be doing interior only. I would only be considering exterior only appraisal assignments.
Yeah. And just today, Fannie Mae, who purchases at least half, if not more than that, of the fixed rate loans that get originated in the U.S. has just given approval for drive-by appraisals.
Yes, I figured they would do that. I'm actually surprised they did it this quickly.
They needed to.
They did. I'm pleasantly surprised how quick they did it.
Exactly. And I do think that's one thing that we're seeing about this. So let's talk about a few of the knowns. I went to some stats because I would rather talk about things that are factual and measurable than wild speculation or fear, though I will throw in a little speculation as we get later into the podcast, just my own gut feeling about a few things.
Sure.
So as of March 16th, which seems like forever ago, 45% of real estate agents in the U.S. said that they saw no change in activity yet. And they reported that only 16% of their sellers had removed their home from the market, whereas 77% of their sellers were requiring buyers or visitors to wear gloves in the house. I've seen new listings drop, pretty much just like a regular spring market. I see a lot of new listings coming on.
Yeah, I've been pleasantly surprised at that also. Showing time, I'm looking at the stats for 2019 versus 2020 for New Hampshire. It's showing me that the 2020 market was the spring market was really headed in a great direction. As of March 11th, 2020, actual weekly showings were up 65% over last year at the same time.
Wow. And that's compared to another spring market just the year before, which was another boom market. Yeah.
And the other thing is we still have an extremely tight inventory.
We do. Yeah.
So, of course, listings have gone down since then and will probably continue to decline for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. And then showings, when did the showings start to drop? So the 11th was the peak, right?
Yeah, the 11th was the peak, so it's been dropping since then, and actually dissected the 2019 weekly average on March 19th.
Okay.
So
we dropped down to where we were last year, March 19th.
On March 19th, and of course we've been declining over the last few days.
And now we're still heading on a decline. I listened to an update from Lawrence Yoon, who is the chief economist for the National Association of Realtors. There's nobody who watches the real estate market more closely than he does. And he had mentioned that we are coming off 90 consecutive months of sales increases in the U.S., and that's according to the National Association of Realtors. I also was thinking back to those the two last major downturns that we had in real estate, and I wanted to look at the stats and see, how many homes sold. It wasn't zero. It was definitely more than 0 homes. So take heart there. So in 1990 and 1991, both years, which were the bottom of that market, there were 2.9 million homes sold. And then in 2010 and 2011, which was the most recent market downturn, that was the bottom before it turned around, those 2 years were 4.3 million homes sold. And I'm comparing that to the peak year. The last peak year was 2005 with 6.2 million homes sold. So what does this mean? It means that there will always be houses that are bought and sold. The market will never stop entirely. It's also kind of interesting as I look at those two downturns, because the downturn in 90 and 91 was very sharp and very drastic, and then it rebounded in the same fashion. Whereas in 2010 and 2011, that was actually a longer, slower, the brakes were sort of put on with some federal economic policies, which kept us from dropping down as drastically, but they also lengthened the term of that particular recession. At the time, I felt like that was better. I would rather have a new normal than have things be so volatile, but who knows? The other interesting thing as I was looking at those stats is looking over from basically 1985 to today, there was only 4 years of actual depreciation in the US. So most of the time, even when the market was not doing great, it was staying level versus depreciating or appreciating. And the years of depreciation were the years of 2007 to 2011. So that started the year after the peak and continued until it turned around in 2011. During those 4 years, the average mortgage rate was 6%. So that's considerably higher than they are today, if we were to compare those two.
But when you look at history and what mortgage rates for when we bought our first house,
what
were they, about 10%?
10%.
And that was in the late 90s, mid 90s.
92 we bought our first
92.
house. Yeah.
The rate back then was 10%, and we thought it was a good deal. So
absolutely, yeah.
It's all relative.
It is all relative. I do plan for us to do an episode specifically on housing affordability, because that's pretty interesting.
And I mean, the rate today is about 4%. They do expect it to stabilize, but that is about, a half a point increase just over the last they had a major drop there.
Major drop,
But
yeah.
about 2.5 weeks ago? It was actually...
It was right when the news came out about coronavirus, before we really started the distancing.
Right.
But it did affect the markets,
Sure.
affect the stock market, and then the rates dropped to where you could get close to 3 on a 30-year.
Right.
And then there were so many refinance applications that they spiked back up to about 3.5, and then you're saying today they're around 4.
Yes, according to bankrate.com.
Yeah, so there's a lot of volatility in the mortgage rates right now. I do see that being short term. I think the mortgage rates will stabilize, and certainly with the Fed's short term borrowing rate being 0.
Yeah, they're going to try to keep the mortgage rates low.
Yeah, they're going to try to keep that low. The stock market is even more volatile at the moment.
No doubt.
Yeah, and I do feel for people, and we have clients and relatives who have money in 401ks that they're depending on, and there are people who are, have money in savings towards their down payments that are being affected by this as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to the meltdown.
Yeah,
In that respect.
In that respect, it is. It is. I read today that iBuyers, for example, Open Door, Realogy, Redfin, I don't know how many other ones, but they're temporarily halting their instant online offers to purchase homes for cash, and that makes sense.
Of course, they're waiting to see what will happen too.
Yeah. We've been adapting on a daily basis. Our company stopped doing open houses about a week ago. We got a new addendum today to address the fact that there may be delays or impacts to mortgage transactions and real estate transactions if businesses have to stop or shut down temporarily. And I just mentioned the thing about the appraisals.
Yeah, exactly. And we've, like you said, we've gotten new addendums to that specifically deal with the pandemic and what issues might arise and how we're going to deal with them. Yeah. So some of the unknowns, the mortgage rates, as we said, right now is an unknown, and I've talked to a couple of mortgage originators who are locking people in at whatever seems like a good rate rather than gambling on what's going to happen tomorrow. I expect within a month or two there will be some stability there, but I can't be 100% on the timing of it. We do need to watch consumer confidence, and we're in the beginning of this, so we won't have data on it until probably a couple of weeks or a month from now, but typically the real estate market pretty closely correlates with consumer confidence. Oh, no doubt.
Because there have certainly been in other downturns, there have been people who have steady jobs, who've got savings, who have equity in their house. They're in a good position to be able to do something, but they see their neighbors are out of work, or they see prices are falling elsewhere, and they hesitate, they hang back, and that's just human nature.
Yeah, I mean, if you're comfortable right now with your job and you're looking for a place and you're looking to make a move, now might be the time, because the competition might not be as fervent as it has been in the past.
Yeah, every buyer who said, wow, I wish this crazy market would slow down, might have just gotten their wish.
Right.
Yeah.
But then we also are then dealing with a ton of other issues, home inspections, appraisals, etc. But this is all going to be worked out.
Yeah, and I will say, just in our daily updates amongst ourselves, the agents I'm talking to, they're writing offers, they're putting houses on the market. We just wrote an offer yesterday, and we're in a multiple offer situation for that buyer. So while we're talking about this being a shift in the market, I don't see the data on that yet.
No.
Nor do I see it anecdotally. So thinking of consumer confidence, I took a look at one article, and it quoted 3 different surveys that said between 56 and 69% of Americans believe that they or someone in their family will get this disease, this COVID-19. And that was on 538.com, which is a great website if you happen to like surveys and statistics.
Oh, I have to agree with that. I mean, eventually, I think that most Americans will actually come down with this.
Right. Not a doctor. but yeah.
Not a doctor.
Not a doctor. Also, unemployment applications are already going crazy. They're probably going to go even crazier. The question is, are those people who are temporarily unemployed that their company is saying, hey, go collect unemployment for right now. We're going to lay you off so that you can do that, and then we can bring you back on when things return back to normal. One of the things that Dr. Yoon said, that's the chief economist from NAR, is that this is different from other previous crises, economic crises, in that it's going to be more of a shorter term, and it is likely to have a sharp impact and then a sharp bounce back. So I certainly don't know, but that's what he's saying, and I can see that. I can see that this is not something that is hopefully going to be long term. It's something that should affect. It's definitely affecting this second quarter of the year 100%. I guess we're still in the end of the first quarter, but let's just say the second quarter of the year. I'm not sure what's going to happen in the third and fourth quarters of the year, but certainly it doesn't look like it's going to be something that's going to be protracted.
No, I mean, potentially we could have just the spring market just move forward.
Just be stalled.
Yeah. So
postponed.
happen 3 months from now or
Yeah.
6 months from now. We don't know that. There's definitely going to be, I would think there's definitely going to be pent up demand.
Yeah, it's like when the Grinch tried to cancel Christmas and the Who's in Whoville had it anyway, right? We're not in a recession because a recession would require 2 quarters of declining GDP. So we can't even use the R word until at least 6 months have gone by. So, the other question is what's going to be the impact of the disease itself, not just the economic impact, and that's a big unknown. So a survey of experts in academia, government, and industry who are all involved with pandemics, their estimates range from 4,000 deaths to 1 million deaths in the US. So basically, throw a dart at a dartboard. The consensus being about 200,000 deaths. And that's also from some surveys that are accumulated on 538.com. I don't know what the impact of the actual illness is going to be. Are we going to have people who recover from the illness, but they're compromised, and so they need to move in with family members? Are we going to have more people unemployed because they're being caretakers or because they themselves are ill? Are we going to have higher demand for jobs because there's going to be less of a workforce because some of our workforce has unfortunately become dead or disabled? I certainly don't know anything about what might happen there.
Yeah, I can't comment on that.
Yeah, so that was the unknowns. So we'll move on to the challenges. One of the challenges that I see, and we're residential realtors, but one of the challenges I see is for commercial real estate, because overnight, any company that was not moving towards virtual workforce is now doing virtual workforce.
No doubt. And also people are sprucing up their home offices or making a makeshift home office
Right.
so that they can do this virtual.
Yeah, they all want a bigger house. Call us.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, even medical, they're doing almost drive-by and virtual medicine to reduce their own exposure. So, I'm hearing stories of patients are being met out in the parking lot, and paperwork and conversation and everything is happening there, and doctors are doing more telemedicine over the phone, and nurses are doing more telemedicine over the phone. So it's not just office work that's trying to go virtual. Everybody's trying to go virtual. There may very well be an economic shutdown where there is just a complete pause in the economy, and unemployment we already talked about. We know that there is at least one, if not several, stimulus plans under discussion, both federally and at the state level, to help people either defer expenses or to replace income. We're seeing there's holds on foreclosures, there's holds on evictions, there's talk of
Filing taxes.
Yeah, there's holds on filing and paying taxes. Yes, one good thing. So what we don't know, and what we've sort of already said, is so people who had planned to purchase a home, are they just going to postpone that decision, or are they going to entirely cancel that decision? I'm sure it'll be a mixture of both.
Yeah, obviously it's going to take a while before we know what happened. But
Yeah.
and obviously, we were not prepared for this situation.
No.
And you know what? Hopefully we will be the next time, because this won't be the last time.
Well, quite honestly, we're not even prepared for major snowstorms when everybody else runs out and gets water and bread and
right.
toilet paper.
Exactly.
I'm just going to live with whatever's in my house. So I'm not a doomsday prepper.
Do we have enough toilet paper? Have you used the toilet paper calculator?
Yes, I have. I have. So we have 20 days worth of toilet paper.
Woohoo!
All right. So let's talk about opportunities. There are a couple of factors to think about when we think about opportunities of what a shift in the market might bring us. One is supply and demand. There is currently an inventory shortage, and it's not just an inventory shortage of houses for sale, it's an actual housing shortage. So in the Boston/Nashua area, there was on average 1 new unit built for every 6 new jobs. This is a survey that was done by NAR. It was published in February of 2019, so it's a year old, but it looked back at 3-year cumulative totals at 178 different metro areas in the US. The historical average is that there would be 1 new unit built for every 2 new jobs. So we're lagging very far behind as adding new housing into the supply.
And that's been happening for 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah. Really, yeah.
Maybe even longer.
Maybe even longer than that. So, yeah. I would go back to probably before 2000.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah. The other thing about supply and demand is we talk about this a lot, the boomers and the millennials. So the boomers have not fully sold their houses and gone into downsizing, and the millennials have not fully gone and bought their first houses.
Correct.
So there's some unmet demand there, and there's some unmet supply there as well.
Well, it's been really tough for first-time home buyers because, frankly, the prices have been, astronomical.
And then student loans have definitely played a part in that.
Yeah, basically they have just too much debt to really qualify for what we consider a first-time home buyer's home, which now is in our area. It's not less than $300,000.
It's not less than $300,000. I know.
Which,
that's
yeah.
That's a lot for a first home.
Exactly.
Thing is with the interest rates, it's more affordable than rent.
That's true.
So it's all relative.
Yeah.
But certainly the down payment.
It's still better than renting.
Exactly. Another thing is whether mortgage credit loosens or tightens. So what I have seen, and you have too, in these last downturns in the real estate market, these last shifts in the market, is that the mortgage industry gets nervous and they start to tighten up on credit. The more they tighten up on credit, the harder it is for people to buy, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that your market goes down.
Sure, I don't think that's going to happen this time.
Yeah, I don't either, because they already put in the QL, the quality lending, after the last mortgage meltdown, and so I don't see a lot of this crazy fog and mirror subprime lending going on, and there is a definite appetite on the part of the federal government, it looks like right now, to make sure that this stays a short-term factor. So we'll see about that.
Let's not get into politics.
Let's not get into politics, but I will say the last 2 downturns, FHA became the lender of resort when it became so much harder to get a conventional loan.
Sure.
And because FHA pretty much kept their lending guidelines the same regardless. And so anyway, I do have concerns for money in the stock market right now. I would personally right now rather have cash or own a few properties than to see my stock portfolio drop 35% in a week.
Although if you have the stomach for it, now's the time to invest in
Now's the time to buy, exactly.
But it's also the time to buy a property.
Yeah, or maybe after you see how things shake out.
Okay.
All right. I'm just talking a month or so.
I know.
I'm just talking later on this year. But whether we're talking about stock or we're talking about real estate, you haven't lost anything until you sell. So if you don't need to sell, you don't need to really open those statements that come in the mail. That's been my philosophy for years.
Head in the sand?
Head in the sand. Yes. So another opportunity is that real estate transactions are going to go forward based on motivation. So some people will need to buy and sell because they need to. Some people will buy and sell because they want to. And then there are people who've been buying and selling where it's totally optional and maybe even a luxury, and they're most likely to back out of a market. So here are some examples of different motivations that people have in order of need to want down to optional. So job relocation. If you're getting relocated, you have a job change, you're going to need to sell your home. You're going to need to buy or rent a home. Family changes drive a lot of real estate decisions. Marriages, divorces, an inheritance or an estate property, having new babies, blending families together. You might need to caregive, or you might have your adult kids move back in with you and start a multi-generational household. So those kind of family changes also will lead to household changes and housing changes. A job loss is certainly a good reason to sell a house. And as we mentioned before, if you're now working virtually, you might want to put together a really nice office situation for yourself, and you might be less worried about commuting. So that could be a reason why you're going to move. Downsizing. Certainly a lot of us have been ready to downsize or thinking about it for a while and haven't pulled the trigger yet. After this quarantining and close family togetherness, I think we all need to add an away space or two to our house.
Well, that's why us men have man caves.
Exactly.
We've known about this for a long time.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me that you go disappear there.
Oh, I know.
Builders still need to buy and sell real estate. They're out of business if they don't. Flippers, if you've been flipping, you've had a market where it's been easy to make money, but it's been hard to find properties. It's been hard to get bargains on properties. This might help you out. Certainly people who are buying and selling second homes are not a necessity. So that's an area of the market that could very well be affected. And also speculation of buying properties in order to turn them into Airbnb rentals. So that's something that I would expect to soften up.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah. On the other hand, if prices go down, those are good opportunities to buy properties for those purposes. And you might have more people who are taking vacations that they drive to rather than fly to.
Yeah, more local.
So more regional. I did come across another statistic. I'm having fun with my stats today, and that is in February nationally, 32% of home buyers were first-time buyers. That's still down from what was historically typically around 40%. And 17% of the buyers were investors and second home buyers. So that, like I said, might be where we're going to see some change, at least in the short time. Now, what's some things that you can do right now? You've got time on your hand. We don't know exactly what's going to happen in the real estate market. You can take action. You can take control of a couple of different things, and I've got a few suggestions. One is to review your budget. I swear I'm going to do this.
Well, you have been doing it.
I have been doing it. Cut unnecessary expenses. I've started doing that.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Improve your credit score. And I think we've said this in another episode, but if you want to talk to one of our mortgage lenders about improving your credit score, we can definitely put you in touch with them, because it's not always a matter of just paying everything off. There are different things that go into how the credit score is calculated, so you can be strategic about how you do that. If you own a house, this is a great time to clear out your house. As far as I'm concerned, you can have a dumpster delivered and make no contact with the dumpster guy.
I think they're willing to do that.
I think they're willing to do that. Yeah, just start filling that up. It's also a good time to take care of all those little household projects.
Put your kids to work. They're home.
They're home. You can paint and stage. I'll talk to my stager, see if we can't do some virtual staging for people. And overall, I just want to encourage myself and everybody and my dear sweet husband and business partner to avoid catastrophe thinking. Worrying is just borrowing trouble. The other thing that I have learned from experience, when we're in a down market, is people said to me so many times, they said, why me? I bought at the height of the market and now I have to sell at the bottom of the market and this is just my bad luck. I want you guys to know it's not your bad luck. If you buy at the height of the market, that's because you're buying when everybody else is buying. You're in the majority and you're all dealing with the same external set of circumstances. And if you buy at the bottom of the market, it just means once again you're in the majority, because that's what the majority of the people are doing, and you're all just in the same circumstances. So if that should happen, try not to take it personally. Remember, this is the roof over your head. It's more than just an investment. It's not a statement that comes in the mail. It's your actual house. It's the roof over your head. And we had a really good piece of advice from Alan Rice, one of our operating principals, earlier this week. And he said, it's important right now, even though we're distancing, that we not isolate, that we be insulated, but not isolated, that we stay in touch with each other. So just to summarize, the market is probably going to be affected by this. Things are changing. They're changing on a daily basis, but there are always challenges. There are always opportunities. I want to thank you so much for listening to us as we get real about real estate. Please like, subscribe, and share Spouses Talking Houses with your friends, family, and neighbors. And that UPS driver, God bless him, who's still working. If you like this show, we'd be grateful if you leave a review. We listen to your feedback and reviews to help others find this podcast. And you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and your favorite podcatchers. Thank you.
Music courtesy of the Eric Lindbergh Trio. Please visit his website at www.ericlindberghworld.com. Jennifer and Brian are licensed to practice real estate in New Hampshire and Massachusetts. Brian is also a certified general appraiser in New Hampshire. They are not lawyers, accountants, home inspectors, or therapists. Real estate customs and rules may be different in your area. Each Keller Williams Realty office is independently owned and operated. The Realtor name is trademarked to members of the National Association of Realtors. If you are currently under contract with a real estate agent, this is not intended as a solicitation. Views expressed on this podcast by Jennifer may not be shared by Brian and vice versa, nor are they necessarily the views of Keller Williams Realty.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Café, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.